Welcome to another Reltio Community Show. I'm Chris Detzel, and we do have special guest Suchin Chodenkar. He's a principal product manager here at Reltio. He's been on several shows, just not super recent. Welcome, Suchin. How are you?
Good. Good to be here again.
Yeah, it's good to have you. And today's topic, and it's one that is of interest to a lot of our customers on increased productivity and improve CX with automated householding. So it's a feature that we've been working on some time, and I'm really excited for Suchin to show what we have today and talk a little bit more about it. Before we do get started, keep yourself on mute as usual. All questions should be asked in chat, or take yourself off mute, ask the question. Um, Community show will be recorded and posted to the Reltio community as usual. I'll send out an email, my hope is by tomorrow, and let you know where it's at, and attaching the PowerPoint to it as well. So quickly, upcoming shows, and we have one or two more that I just haven't pushed out yet, but today's show is increase productivity and improve CX with automated householding. And then on Monday, which best I could do is on the 24th, and another great feature that I think is an EA. So it's called leveraging pre-trained machine learning models for efficient entity resolution. Another feature that that we're allowing, or that is coming out soon. And then on the 23rd of August, I will be out for the first 2 weeks of August on vacation, going to France. I'm super excited. But anyways, on this topic, we'll be talking about from foundation to future, harnessing MDM for democratic data governance, more of a thought leadership piece and not focused in on Reltio product. And then lastly, Reltio is hosting, or actually a sponsor of a conference called Data Driven. It's a modern data management conference, October 3rd through 5th here in Dallas, Texas, where I'm at. Super hot, but shouldn't be that hot by October 3rd through the 5th. We have some great speakers. We hope you can make it. I'll push that information into the chat here shortly. But without further ado, Suchin, I'm going to hand this over to you and let you kick this off.
Sure. Thanks, Chris. Let me share my screen and I'll get started. Okay. All right. Yeah. Is it visible?
It's perfect, man. Yep.
All right. Okay. Thanks everyone for joining. My name is Suchin Chodenkar. I'm product manager at Reltio, responsible for some of the core product features. Been with Reltio for more than 8 years now. Today I'm excited to talk about automated householding feature that we released in 23.2, which was last release. In today's session, I'm going to talk about a little bit about the use case, what this householding feature is about, what we are planning to, or what we are trying to solve here, what the feature does, how it can be configured, and I'll wrap it up with a short demo, and then we can talk about. Let's try to keep this very interactive. Feel free to ask questions anytime during the session. We have plenty of time here, so let's get started. So let's start with the problem statement, right? I mean, we have been basically working with the customers who have been dealing with the household data, and the issue that they're facing here is most of the data that is brought into Reltio is basically source system provided, right? So be it customer information, location, product, or whatever it is, it's always something that is fed into Reltio, and then we basically configure the match merge rule to consolidate the record and provide the consolidated view, right? And for all this thing is great, but there is a case where the customer information, if you have people basically from the same household or group of people who share the same financial responsibility, liability, debt, and so on, they want to understand this relationship, right? Because why it matters is, imagine a case where you have one happy customer, right? And you know that there are a lot of other customers that basically are related to him or her, you want to pass on those benefits to other customers as well. And of course, through referrals and everything, you can acquire new customers and basically sell more products and all. On the flip side, if you have an unhappy customer, it's not just about losing one customer. This customer, if he is like part of the household, bigger group, then that it's not just one customer problem. It's basically suddenly what gets out, and you might find yourself in a very challenging situation. So that's why it's very important to understand how these customers are related and all. Now, the problem with some of the traditional way of doing things is like, of course, you can buy this information like, from third-party data providers and whatnot. So this data, first of all, is expensive. Then traditionally, we have always basically followed the approach of kind of building a custom solution to bring this data in, keep the data up to date, and keep feeding it into master data management kind of systems. And every time there is a change in the rules or anything like that, you have to basically update the implementation. It becomes like very expensive. And accuracy is again key here, right? The third party data provider that you're relying on, or even the internal processes that you're working on, those have to basically keep up with the rules of the householding and all. So that is basically the difficulty in creating and managing this data with a custom solution, right? And we have seen multiple times customer basically talk about how challenging it is to basically build that kind of solution, where you have to kind of stitch all these different APIs together to basically find customers who basically have the, let's say, same last name, same address, group them together, and basically then every time there is a change in some information about any customer, you have to again go and run those APIs again and pull them apart, put them in a different groups and things like that, right? So this gets really messy and really kind of expensive for our customers. So we wanted to kind of solve this problem, right? So what we have released in 2023.2 is a automated householding feature. Now, everything that I talked about, which is basically a pain about stitching all these APIs together, trying to find the best rule, or trying to build the best rule to kind of group these household members together, and find the right APIs to do it, then all those things, we wanted to kind of eliminate all of that, right? We wanted to kind of simplify so that as a business user, as a tenant owner, you should be able to do all of this without involvement, or basically without coding or customizing anything. So that's what we have done here. What this feature does, basically, it looks at your data, which you are managing, like the customer information. We know that that is accurate. That is what you are basically focused on. You keep updated. You keep that data updated. So what we wanted to do is use that data set and derive the household information based on that. So if you have, say, 3 customers basically sharing the same last name and same address and same account number, that they are basically part of the same household. So we wanted to kind of leverage the existing matching functionality that you all are aware of, which we use for deduplication, right? We wanted to extend that matching engine to solve this householding problem. Now, using the same matching engine, now you will be able to basically write a rule or configure a rule using our match rule builder. Again, no customization or configuration or coding is required there. You can just configure a match rule using a match rule builder, saying, find all the members who share the same last name, same address, and say same account number, for example. So you build a rule and just provide that rule to Reltio platform and say, use this rule and give me the household. It's that simple. So really, that is all that is needed here. There is absolutely no coding required and no configuration. Like, everything is UI based. So what it does, basically derives this household data automatically using the customer information. And as and when the data is changing, the rule engine automatically triggers the matching process again and recalculate the household. So for example, if you have John Smith and Jackie Smith staying together, sharing the same account number, and for whatever reason, if they separate, and if their underlying data is changed, now they don't live together at the same place anymore, the matching engine will basically trigger and basically find out that these two records are not together anymore. They should be separate out. So it will automatically take Jackie Smith or John Smith out of the household and try to find a new household or create a new household for that person, right? So as the data changes, the household data is automatically updated for you. So on the same side, uh, if you have two records basically currently are part of the different household, and in case of like marriages and other kind of situation, if they come together, then you will have the data basically a household merging together as well. So this is basically all happening in the backend with that one simple configuration, right? What it does, it basically reduces or even eliminate the need to manually identify these records. So today, data stewards are required to basically go in their Reltio tenant or their systems and basically find all these records. They should be part of the same household, relate them or group them somehow. You don't have to do that anymore because this feature will do that for you. So I will talk about some of this during the demo. We'll show you how this self-service UI and how easy it is to configure new grouping type or new household configurations. And the last part of the solution is basically building the household itself, right? Since we are authoring this data right in Reltio, we have to basically build this household information like household name, household address from somewhere, right? So we are providing you with a mapping screen that will allow you to copy values from the member information, the household member information into the household. So for example, if you want to basically copy the name, the last name of all the members as a household name, you can do that using the same self-service UI that we have provided. So just to summarize here, you can view household across customer data with rapid and easy access to the trusted, up-to-date information. This is basically allowing your data, keeping the data up to date will automatically update your household information. So all you have to do is just make sure your customer information is up to date and your household data is automatically taken care of. It eliminates manual effort and costly customization. This is basically where you have to invest in figuring out the custom solution, figuring out the APIs, the design for it, how best to kind of put all this together. And the moment rules or some information change about the way you build the household, everything has to be done again, or regression testing on all that stuff. So it's basically very expensive, and of course increase data team productivity with the UI based configuration. You don't even have to worry about learning how the configuration has to be done in Reltio, right? All of that is happening in the background. So I will walk you through the configuration. If you want to kind of do that, if you're comfortable with doing the configuration, you are still allowed to do that. But there's a UI which does all the configuration and generates this configuration in the backend, and it is visible to you if you want to have a look at that. I talked about this automatically maintain and update household member as the data changes in the family event changes. It automatically basically updates your household data. And with this, you can build all sort of targeted marketing campaigns. For example, if you want to build a household for say any campaign, for promotional events and whatnot. Let's say you are running a campaign in Chicago and you want to basically build a household for all the members who lives in Chicago and has say income between whatever range, then you can do those kind of rules as well. Before I get into the technical design, I want to basically show a quick demo, and we'll come back to the technical design and see how it actually works in the backend. Let me know if there are any questions before I jump into the demo on this.
Yeah, there are a couple of questions that are coming in. So in our environment, we aggregate our customers' addresses. So rather than choosing a single address, such as most recent, would that present challenges in the householding rule configuration in Reltio?
The like I said, the householding works on the existing match rule engine, meaning you can basically configure a match rule with any specific address. If there are multiple addresses and you want to say use only home address for building household information on the business address, right? So you will have to configure that in your match rule. So anything that you configure in a match rule to find this group of people who share the same household, once that is done, the grouping service takes over and they basically just group all these records that match together for grouping. So that's how it works. So in other words, you have all the feature and functionality that you use for the deduplication today. If you can write a match rule to find this household, then you can group them using this feature.
Great. Do the match rules allow rules that cross? Sorry, do the match rules allow rules that cross entities? So, for instance, if an account is separate entity from a person, can you have a household match rule that uses last name and account number?
So the way we have solved this, and is a couple of customers who are currently considering this approach. We don't use the relationship data in the matching just yet. We do have plan to support that in future. The way we are planning to solve this for those customers is to use the account information as a reference attribute on the person information. So once you do that, the account information is also now available for the person entity, and now you can write rules to say find all the people having the same last name, address, and account, and this account information is coming from the relationship, not from the same entity. So the short answer is, if you don't have that as a reference attribute, you cannot use that today. But if you configure that as a reference attribute, then it just becomes available to the match engine.
Okay. Is household a separate entity type that gets created? And what happens with relationships?
Okay, so this is really the cool part of this solution, and I'll talk about this when I demonstrate. So what the first thought that came to mind when we were designing this one is, let's create a new entity type or a special type called group type or whatever it is, right? And then the problem with that approach is, like, then we'll have to train and we have to educate all our existing customers and their data stewards to understand how this new grouping type works. Instead, what we did was we let you basically configure a new entity type, just like you would configure person, individual, location, organization, or whatever. Just configure that entity type and tell us that this is the entity type I want to receive this calculated household data in. So there is no separate entity type that we are introducing. You get to create your own entity type, your own attribution, and just basically do the mapping to say, copy this data in this new entity type that I've created. So there's no new concept grouping type or anything like that. The existing entity type will be used for storing the household data.
Great.
And then just to answer that relationship, and of course to tie the relationship as well. So it asks you for the three things. It asks you basically which entity you want to receive this data in, which member or what is the entity type that I need to group, and the third thing is basically which relationship type I need to use to tie this member to this group entity.
Okay. We do have 3 other questions, but I'm going to let you do the demo and then I'm going to ask those questions. Is that okay?
Okay. All right. Let me jump into this. All right. So basically, okay. So this is my individual data. It's a small data set that I've demonstrated so that we can basically trace how this data is getting grouped and how it is kind of coming apart and all that stuff, right? So we have a bunch of records here. You can see their first name, last name here, address, and account information. And by the way, this is basically the question that was asked earlier about the account information. Account is a separate entity here. As you can see, I have 3 accounts here. But then what I've done is basically I've added those account as a reference attribute on this individual. So that's why it is showing up as an attribute here. I'm not using account in my rule for this demonstration. The rule that I'm basically using is exact last name and address. Uh, as you can see here, what I'm trying to do is, traditionally, if I were to kind of group this, I would basically write some sort of search query, find all the records that share the same last name, address, find their entity IDs, which is here, and kind of group them together, create a new household entity, and kind of create that relationship. Right? I have no household today. So what I've done in this individual, I have written this rule. Let me show you that rule. So here is a rule. As you can see, it's the same last name, address line 1, city, state, and any other attribute that you want to add. You can do that. You can write any rule that you like. And right now, this rule is turned off, right? So I'm just going to turn this on. Save this. And since this is a new rule, and I will come back to it, I want to run the rebuild match table. So this is basically a process, a job that tells Reltio to recalculate the matching, because this is like a new rule to the system now. So I'm just going to run this in the meantime. Okay, so while it is running, I want to go back here and explain this one new type of rule that we have introduced. So in past, you might have seen potential match, which is suspect rule type, and automatic merge, which is basically deduplication use case, right? Merging two records together when match rule is satisfied. So we are introducing a new one here, which is automatically group, and this is what you have to select. This is how Reltio understands that this rule is not for deduplication use case. It is for basically creating households. So the moment you create that here, okay, so this is basically, it shows as automatically group here. Now you have to basically go to this grouping type, and this is basically the configuration that you have to do for setting up the household. So while I'm running, I want to make sure this job is running here. Okay. Okay, as you can see, the household information is now created. I did not have any household before. So now I have three families created, or three households created: Carter, Watson, and Watson again. The reason I have two Watson here, because they are at two different addresses. That's what you see here, 100,001 and 2001. So let's look at the data very quickly first. So this is basically the same last name. There are two Watson here, but they are at two different addresses. That's why I see two different households, and there's a Carter family. Let's look at the household data very quickly, how it looks, right? So what it did, basically, it pulled all those records that share the same last name, which is Carter in this case, and share the same address. As you can see here, they all share the same address. And it basically gave me this household, which basically gives you this new family now. And this is basically the family word, again, is coming from the mapping, which I'll show you in a minute. Now, what I want to do is I want to go to the next one and look at another. 1 second. Okay, look at another household here. So I have three members here: Abby, Ricky, and Shane. Another one, Lee Watson. So what I'm going to do is basically, I'm just going to update one of this record, say Abby Watson. I'll change the last name maybe. Excuse me. So I've changed the last name to Johnson. And I'm going to okay. So let's look at Abby. So as you can see, the Johnson name is updated here, still pointing to Watson. Just give it a minute. This is basically a asynchronous service. So what is happening is when the data is updated, the data is then passed on to the grouping service, and the grouping service basically takes over and does the processing and the recalculation.
So you mean like that recalculation will work automatically? We don't need to trigger any additional
Yeah,
process.
you don't have to trigger anything. As you can see here, I
Okay.
updated Abby Watson to Abby Johnson, and the Johnson family record is created now, and also the association is happening. There's no additional job that you have to run. This is basically happening on the fly. So let's look at the Johnson family. So there is Abby Johnson that we just created or updated. Let's go to the previous family, which was Watson family.
Yeah.
It's here. So I don't have that Abby Watson anymore here. As you can see, it is taken out, and it will try to find existing one. If there was a Johnson family at this address, it will try to find that household first and associate with that household. But if that household does not exist, it will create a new one and associate. As you can see, it also has this feature which is not available right now. This is something that we are kind of experimenting with at this point of time, providing new functionality that you can calculate. So count is a basic function that we are thinking of releasing very soon, which calculates the number of members that you have in this household. So it updated from 3 to 2 automatically, and then if I go to the next household, we'll see that it is Lee Watson. This is another one. So as you can see, the data as it is changing, it basically puts those records back and kind of pull them apart if their data do not match with the household data anymore, right? So that's.
Does that mean if any point of time, if we change the rule of household, basically we want to include additional attribute, that will automatically regroup the household thing, or we have to run a separate job for that?
Yeah, so every time you change a rule, you have to run the rebuild job that I just ran. So
Okay.
basically, it's telling, hey, I changed the rule of the household itself, and you have to basically recalculate. The reason this worked just now is because there is an update that was triggered for
Got it.
Abby Watson, right? So when
Got
you
it.
change
Yeah.
the rule, we don't know the data yet, right? So that's why we have to trigger this job separately. Now, if I go
Makes
and
sense.
change that rule, and if I drop the address from that rule, what will happen is all these Watson members that you have from 2 different families, they will come together, right?
Right.
Or
Right.
yeah. So if we were to do this with the traditional approaches, what you'll have to do is basically go and code that new rule, new functions and new approaches, and basically recalculate, right? That there's a development process, testing process, deployment process, and make sure. So that's the part that we have eliminated here. And I've worked on this solution in the past. And from my experience, it takes anywhere from 2 to 6 months to kind of, build a solution if you're doing it for the first time. And if you have to update any of the rules, it takes another like month or two, kind of, just to tweak
Yep.
something, make sure. So
Agree.
that's why we are like, super excited about this one. And we are really happy that we were able to kind of leverage the existing matching functionality that our customers are already aware of in doing this. So let me jump into the configuration part of it. So if somebody
So
were
one quick question before you.
Right.
So what is the matching or grouping criteria or logic for household name?
that is something that you get to decide. And here, so this is basically how you define it. You go to the match rule, you create a new rule. In this case, I already have one, so I'll show you one. You can build your own match rule, anything that you want, or anything that you can basically build here, right? For your individual here, you can have, I have last name here, address line 1, city, state, and I stopped there. I could have had zip code, account number, all that stuff, right? This is my matching criteria. but this is all you have to basically do here. Automatically group. This is what tells Reltio platform that this is not to be merged. This is for basically, you know, grouping records.
Got it. Thank you. Yeah.
Can I raise one more question, please?
Sure.
Yeah. So what if this household is linked to DNB and the data, the address is enriched, right?
Yeah. Right.
So will it update the same household, or because the matching rule as address line 1, right? For argument's sake, the input given earlier is wrong, right? It can have a new address line.
Well,
so will it create a new household and still point these household members?
yeah, so that's a very good question, and this is something that I was planning to cover in the later slide, but let me answer that right now. So as you can see here, there's a source system that we create, or this record is created by Reltio, right? So it is stacked against a source system called R grouping. It stands for Reltio grouping. This is basically to make sure that we are clearly calling out what is authored by Reltio versus what is loaded by customers. And it can be from DNB, it can be your own source system, it can be from your third-party data that I was talking about earlier. You can bring your own data in here, but what obviously you would need here is some sort of match rule to kind of, you know, bring that crosswalk and get attached to this crosswalk that we have created. And that is something that we are working on as an enhancement, or something that will come in the next release, is you will be able to write match rules on this one. So now you can say, great that you have created this household, but I have this information from DNB, or I have this information from this third party, which has additional information about this household, the locality, the income bracket, or something else, right? I want this information to get attached to the group that you created. You will be able to write a match rule to say, bring that record and attach it to the household which has the same same household name, same address, all of that stuff. So you will be able to kind of, you know, write the same match rule, and this time it is merge rule, because you are now merging those crosswalk that you're bringing from outside with the crosswalk that Reltio created for tying these groups together, members together.
So say for example, yeah, I understand what you're saying, but let's put simple case, right? Like here in this address line 1, DNP gave me a new address line 1. So it will create a new household, right?
That is correct.
So then we are not enriching this household, right?
Right. So in that case, right? I mean, if you think about it, you have to have some common attribute for me to understand that the DNB record that you're bringing is the same record that I have this member grouped for, right? If you have different, so it does not have to be. That's why we chose this approach. This is an entity-based householding, meaning you can configure your own set of attribute, right? And here you can say every member will have some household ID, for example.
Yeah.
You bring that ID, you copy that ID into the household, and now your DNB also has an ID. You use that ID to match and kind of, you know, bring that crosswalk together. You can do all sort of stuff with this approach. And that's, by default, the match engine is available to this entity type as well. This is a regular Reltio entity which you create. You can write your own match rules there for. But yeah, you're right. As long as the data exists, you will be able to kind of enrich this data from DNB, from third-party data provider, from your internal source system. But you need to have some common attribute. And as long as you can copy that attribute from member into this, it will work.
And one more question, sorry. Yeah. So for if we already have an existing households, then is there a way to load this crosswalk because we already have households?
I would say, again, the same approach there. If you have the existing household, the only way to load, what you can do is basically, there is a contributor and data provider concept, right? You can attach additional crosswalk to this existing one, but you need to know which household you need to attach that additional existing household information to, right? And you can do that using say member information. For example, if I go to profile here, this is calculated, this is calculated, the relationships are calculated, right? But you have existing household that you need to tie to Carter family. Now you need to have something that you will uh, you will use to identify that Carter family and Carter one family that you have is the same one. Once you figure that out using Reltio's API, you can attach that additional record to this existing calculated entity. That functionality already exists, but you need to tell us which two entity you want to merge.
Gotcha. Like I need to write another merge rule to match the
Yeah.
existing household to this one based on some IDs or something.
Right. Yeah. But
Okay.
I want to clarify again. Currently, you don't have a way to write. I mean, we have prevented match rules on household, and this is just a soft lock that we have done just to kind of avoid that recursive calculation of the household. Just imagine if this is getting grouped and you create another match and use that rule for building another group of households and use that, so it can just go in infinite loop. So that's why we have put a soft lock on match rule for household. So if you define any entity as a grouping entity, you cannot write match rule for now. We are going to
Okay.
open up once we kind of complete that development, but this is just a temporary hold.
Okay,
Right.
so that means we have to wait till that is released, right? If I mean, for the
But
customers who already have household.
yeah, but if you already have a household, there's another functionality that I talked about. Using API, you can simply attach using contributor and data provider. So for that, and again, if there is something that you can share with us, we can look at it, and if we see no risk in kind of opening up that matching for your tenant, we can talk about that too. Like I said, it's a temporary hold. This is just we being super careful about not having that infinite loop of calculation of households and all.
Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
Sachin, makes sense. Let's finish up the demo, and there's still tons of other questions. So let's.
Okay, all right.
All right.
So that I want to quickly go through the configuration part. Like if you were to configure this on your own, you basically start here, create new. I have existing filled out one, so I'm just going to use that for this demonstration. But the form looks exactly like this, right? You start by providing a name, and all this information is optional. As you can see, just name is all that is required here. And this is the entity type. Like I said, you create your own entity type, create your own attribution and all, and this is where you select that this is the entity type that I want to receive my household data in, right? And it can be anything. It can be party group, it can be individual group. Pick the name that you want, pick the entity that you want. Go to the next one. So like I mentioned, it just needs three things, right? You have to tell us what entity type you want to group. And as you can see here, there are a lot of entity types, but only entity type that is listed here or which is available for selection is individual, because that's the only one where we have that automatic group rule written. So the moment I select that, it asks me which rule, if there are multiple rules. And in this case, there were multiple rules. One I've selected here. There is another one which says group exact last name, which is grouping just on the last name. And the last part I need here is which relationship type should I use to tie this to, right? And this is again another part where we thought we could have created our own relationship type, but we wanted to give this flexibility to our customers. So you get to pick your relationship type and your labels, all of that stuff, right? So this is my relationship type that I've created, and that is all that is required. There's another setting here which tells you whether I should create groups even if there is no other matching members, right? So that's what this setting here is. Here, this is set for create a grouping if at least one member exists, meaning I don't have to have matching member. If there is a just singleton or one member, it will still create group for it. If you don't want that, you can always switch that off, and you can say do not create groups if there is just one member, right? So this is again for some use cases we thought it will be very helpful. The last part, now this is where, since we are authoring this data in Reltio, we need to know how to build this grouping information, right? So you need to tell us the attribution that we need to populate. So this is what I have selected so far. So household name, I want to copy from last name. So this is how you do it. basically just select the attribute that you want to kind of populate or copy from your member. So this is basically the grouping attribute household name, and there is a function here which says attribute value or fixed value. So there is another called fixed value here. Attribute value is basically it's a sorry. Please, can you hear me? Just
Yeah, you're good on
my
that.
net. Okay, thought my net got reset or something. Okay, let's go to the mapping. Okay. So attribute value is basically a function copy. What you're saying is copy last name into my household. Then there is something called as fixed value. So this is basically I wanted to generate that nice label which says Watson family and Carter family and all, but I don't have that family word coming from anywhere from the member. So that's when you use this fixed value. This is basically not just for that label or for it to look nice. This is also can be used for segmentation, right? Using this configuration, now you can basically say high earner households or this kind those kind of thing labels you can just copy. So it will every time it creates a new household using this match rule, it will assign this fixed value to that attribute. The suffix I have on the household entity, which does not get any value from the member entity. I'm just kind of manufacturing that here by providing the custom value here, family. Similarly, you can copy addresses, and these are the functions that I was talking about, which is experimental at this point of time. You can have count of all members. Again, if you select this one, you don't have to provide any attribute from the member because it is just counting the members. Average of, maximum, minimum, sum. These are some arithmetic functions that we are thinking about will release soon, which will allow you to calculate, say aggregate household income. Copy all the income values from all the members and just kind of create a sum of it and store it as a household income. So those kind of thing, and that is all that is needed here. So as you can see, what I've done is just selected the entity type where I want to receive this household information, and then selected the member entity type that I want to group, match rule, and the relationship type, and this mapping, right? Continue and save. And that is all you need to basically do.
So
In the back, yeah,
sorry,
go ahead.
I want to ask a question there. So for the address, right? The address is coming from the individual. That
Yeah.
is, so individual could have more than one address, right?
Right.
So will, in that case, household get all the addresses that are across all the, let's say there are 5 individual and they could
Yeah.
have like everyone has a common address, but they could have more than one other addresses, right? So will all the addresses show up under the household?
Yeah, at this point of time, all address. Okay, let me take that back. What is happening here is when the first record is detected, we copy that household address. Sorry, the member address as a household address, and no information is changed after that. Only members get accumulated under that household. So to answer your question, if all these members had different additional addresses, of course, they have to have the same address for them to come together. If they had additional addresses, those addresses will not get accumulated here on the household. But some customers, after talking to them, we realize that is required in some cases. And now you can write a survivorship rule here. Once those addresses are accumulated in household, to say show only the home addresses or whatever it is, right? So we are planning to basically build that functionality which will allow you to accumulate these addresses. Right now it is not. Right now it is just basically picking one address from the first member and it stops. It does not accumulate any more addresses.
Okay. Yeah, because I had a follow-up question like, would you allow survivorship on household? Because
yes, that is definitely something that we are working on along with the matching, which I talked about earlier. So we realized that by keeping this household as a regular entity allows customer to kind of once the data is accumulated, now you can just play around with it, do everything that you're doing with the regular entity, survivorship, cleansing, matching, export, all of that is available to you, right? And that's what we will do. We will open this up for you to do anything that you want to do with the household data. As the member come and go, we'll just kind of take their respective data out from that household information, and the
Sure.
survivorship basically will take care of the new value. So let's say the last name was slightly different as the and you have fuzzy last name as your rule. As a member come and go, this household name will also change based on your
So,
survivorship in future.
so can I ask the last question? I know you have a lot to go, but I have to drop. Well, the question I had was, since household is automatically getting created, right, through the platform, at the crosswalk level, is that the Reltio generated crosswalk, or you can control the the source name and the crosswalk?
So right now it is sort of not hard coded. This is fixed. Again, we wanted to kind of track it. So that's why the name is R grouping. But we will allow you to pick your own name, but it has to be a different crosswalk. Meaning you can pick your own name. The value will be different for every single time there's a new household created in future. But right now it is fixed.
And those values will be system generated, like
This
Reltio.
is yeah. This is because we are authoring this data. This value is also generated by us.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. All right. Good questions. Thank you. All right. So I talked about most of this while I was going through the demo, so I'm going to skip that. I just very briefly want to show you this one slide, how this is happening in the background. So like I said, instead of basically building another kind of grouping service and whatnot, which is responsible for doing identification rules and all of that stuff, we are leveraging the existing matching engine, right? Which is proven, and our customers are very well aware of how to configure and all those complex rule if you want to. So what it is doing is, like, every time there is a change to the data, it basically goes through the matching engine. It always goes through the matching engine, and matching engine basically looks at this new rule type to see if the rule that I'm matching on is of grouping type. If it is of grouping type, then it hands over that group of records that match using that match rule to a new service. This is a brand new service called grouping service, and that grouping service is now responsible for kind of managing the group, right? Do I have to create a new group? Does it have a group? Should I take out from the existing group? All that stuff, right? So this module is responsible for calculating all of that stuff, right? And it looks for all sort of stuff, like whether the member who is leaving the existing group, does he have a new group, existing group already that I need to attach to? And it makes sure that the group it is going to also meets that criteria. Otherwise, it goes and finds a new group. And once all the members leave a group, for example, and the group does not have any member, then that group serves no purpose. So we are automatically deleting that group. That is also taken care by this grouping service. Okay, so this is how the configuration looks like. If you want to say, I really want to write L3, I don't like UI for whatever reason, or you want to basically do this programmatically, then you still have that option. So this is the configuration, how it is generated when you do this configuration from UI. And you can write this configuration directly in the L3, and the UI will render based on this. So as you can see, there are three components here. The grouping information, basically just the standard Reltio URIs and stuff. The member information here, which rule, which relationship type, and which entity type I'm grouping. And this is a mapping, sorry. This is a mapping screen where you are copying last name to the household name and address to address. And this is basically reference, so it will copy everything, address 1, address line 1, city, state, whatever you have. If you do this, you can also basically write a fixed function here if you want. Something to, how much time do we have? 10 minutes. Okay, something to know about this feature released in 23.2. As I mentioned, there are some soft holds that we have, some limitations that we have put just to make sure that we stay within the boundary of something that we have certified this feature for, and then expand this further in future releases. So at this point of time, this feature will stop accumulating members once it reaches 50 members. So you can basically have a household of up to 50 members at this point of time. if you have a need for extending this to higher number, we can look at the use case and extend that if needed. Like I said, this is a soft hold, but at this point of time, it is only 50 members. We talked about this one. Match rules cannot be configured for the entity type that is used as grouping. So household, you cannot group the households once if it is generated by Reltio, right? This will be supported in future as well. Rebuild match table job will recalculate. This I demonstrated. Every time you change a match rule, you have to basically run the rebuild because we don't have the update to the data, which triggers the rebuild automatically. One member cannot be a member of multiple household entities at this point. And this is a use case that came across recently, that if you have a member who can be part of the multiple households, that is currently not supported. This is also something that we'll build in future. And R grouping, we talked about this. This is a Reltio provided source system for grouping. And right now, the grouping option, if you go to your tenant today, you will not see that option, but does not mean that this feature is not available to you. It is just not enabled by default. You can create a support ticket and request this feature, and we'll enable this feature for you.
One quick question. So how the system will behave in case like one particular person has a same surname that belongs to two different household, and he has exactly same like two addresses, and that belongs to the two different household with the same last name. You know what I'm trying to say?
Right. So it stays with one of the households today, and that was something that was brought up as one of the requirements, that there are the data in that common member is such that it can be part of two groups, right? That's what the case was. So it basically matches with the first entity and it stays there. It does not move because it is still kind of meeting the criteria of the match rule with the first group. So it does not leave that group.
Yeah.
What we are going to do is basically have this check for other criteria as well, using other data that you might have, and see if it should be attached to other household as well, and that's what we'll support in future.
Got it. So any random one will be created and will not create the other one. Like he'll be part of one of the household, but there is no logic. I mean, it is random, right?
Like we might have lost Sachin here at the end.
Probably, yes. Yeah.
Let's see. See if I can put him on. No, stop video. Sachin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay, good. Sorry.
So first of all, I think household is one of the group types you are giving out of the box, right? Sorry, I joined a bit late, but so that's what I understand. One of the group types household is, and which comes out of the box once somebody requests, right? So the grouping, so I'm trying to understand this grouping feature, how it is different from entity types, and where and all it can be used in a custom entity. Can we use it for, can we have our own groups created? And can I have a group that has, records coming from more than one entity type?
Sachin, did you get that? Or it looks like you.
Yeah, I got dropped for just a minute. Can you repeat that question, please?
So it's like, give me an example. Let me give me an example, right? So this is grouping is a new feature, right? So and household grouping is something you're giving out of the box, right? When somebody requests. Can we do the same grouping on our own, like create own groups? That's one thing, right? One is like, can we create not household, but let's say account group or customer group, supplier group, right? We can.
Yeah. So one second. That's the next thing I was going to talk about. So we do have plan to kind of extend this service to support that, and the reason we are calling it a householding feature and not grouping service, because grouping is a service, underlying service that is used to build this feature. we would basically provide you a new feature that will allow you to build any kind of group, not just householding. So this 50 limit that you have, if you can stay within that and you can build your account group, sure, you can build any grouping for that. It does not have to be individual only, right? But we thought like, with these limitations, you cannot really build product groups, for example, or account group, but you're definitely allowed to build any group, any entity group, really.
Okay, and then the grouping comes with the similar features, right? You know, the survivorship, its own survivorship, and other additional features as you have in household, or not.
Right. So that's the plan, right? Open that grouping to support matching, survivorship, cleansing, all of that stuff, and really have a generic grouping capability that is not really for just grouping the members for household purpose. You can group any entity. That's the plan in future. That's why we are super excited about this new service that we have built, which is acting as a foundation of this householding feature.
And a follow-up question, right? So I have a situation where I need to maintain suppliers, a separate entity, a separate domain. Then I also need to maintain my customers as a separate entity.
Yeah.
But I have two different business needs there. At the same time, I have a overlapping situation between these two, right? Can I use grouping there to get the overlapping part into one group?
No, I think for that we are planning for that cross entity type matching, and that's what probably you're asking there. Right?
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, so once we introduce the cross entity matching, you would be able, say, basically grouping is a different concept than matching. Matching is used just to kind of identify the members and hand over to the grouping service, and grouping basically just manages that group, relating the members, taking them apart, creating new members, new groups, and all that stuff. But the match engine is really what is responsible for identifying this members, right? So right now it is matching only within one entity type. We will extend the matching engine to allow you to match across entity type. So you can do say vendor and contact, for example. You want to match across and find out if there is an overlap and whatnot.
Yeah, so that's exactly what my requirement is actually.
Right. And yeah, we will support that, but that is not just for grouping purpose, right? That could be also for deduplication. That's why it's a matching enhancement that we're looking at, which will benefit both grouping and deduplication use cases.
Any timelines on that, Sujin? And when that cross entity matching will be where?
Right. So we have some initial designs that we are currently working on. I don't want to kind of put any dates on it because it changes based on the priorities and
some ballpark.
But I would say a couple of releases within couple of weeks.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.
Yeah, follow-up question on the same lines, if I may.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, so we have a use case where, for example, under sales, how there are those territories that a sales manager is responsible for, and then under that, there are agents that have parts of those territories.
Yeah.
So each one is responsible for a hierarchy downwards.
Yeah.
So would we be able to do something like that with the grouping or the upcoming feature?
Right. Not right now, but that's another use case that we have been looking at, and that is the reason we put a hold on the matching capability for grouping, right? I know that is one of the very popular use case for many of our customers, but we want to make sure that we test it and we develop it right so that it works perfectly. So the idea is basically you can create a group using a zip code, for example, right? So you'll create a territory of which is a group, right? And now you can create another group from that list of groups and tie it to another one level up. So you can create a hierarchy territory, and then you can have some auto assignment based on the zip code tying to the rep, right? So yeah, we are looking at that use case, and so that's why we thought of building this grouping service as a foundation. As you can see from this discussion, a lot of use cases that we can build from this, and that is exactly the plan here. That's why this grouping service is what we are focusing on, and other services or other features will be taken care as long as this grouping service can handle all these different use cases. So right now, I would say you can reach out to me. We can talk about that and see if we can leverage some part of it. But at this point of time, we just have to really wait for this next level, which is opening up of match rules, survivorship rules, and grouping of a group. That is what you need to build that functionality.
Great.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Suchin, thank you so much for another great show. Unfortunately, we're out of time, and there's literally 20 more questions in the chat.
Yep.
So what I'll do is I'll post your questions on the community, and then I'll have Suchin go in and answer them the best he can, and or other folks from Reltio. So Suchin, that's going to be on us to get those questions answered. Could be a potential for an Ask Me Anything around this,
Right.
maybe in late August. So
Sure.
I think maybe there should, and we'll bring up some of these questions, and then it won't be a demo or anything like that, but I think it might be smart to literally 20 questions here.
I think it's a good idea to kind of talk about how this grouping service can be leveraged for other use cases that we are just discussing here. It can be kind of one session on itself.
Good idea. Yeah. Let's push for the August. So thank you everyone for coming. Thank you for your questions. Hopefully this was valuable. Please take the survey at the end. When you leave, a Zoom pop-up will show up. And Suchin, thanks again for some great content and a great feature that I know people are extremely interested and excited in. They can't wait to build upon that. So
yeah, thanks Grace for organizing this, and thank you everyone for your questions.
All right.
Talk soon.
Talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.